I'm Mel Stewart, and you're watching the SwimSwam podcast. Joining me today is a very special guest, a founding member of PDR in Philadelphia, the famed all-black swimming team helmed by Jim Ellis, Coach Jim Ellis. And today we have this team is immortalized in the film Pride, released by Lionsgate in 2007. Today we have Trevor Freeland. How you doing, buddy?
How you doing, Mel? Good to see you.
To bring you on because it's a you're the man behind the scenes. Basically, you're the guy who's telling me everything that I've been doing wrong for years and years and years. And it's like, Mel, that's not right. This is right. So, and I have to say this right off the top. I think that there are 5 people on Earth who have an encyclopedia type understanding of the sports in terms of data. And they either work at NBC or they're at USA Swimming or they're working at SwimSwam. And there's you, and I don't know how you do this. Like, what's going on with your brain?
Well, a couple of things, really, Mel, and you're far too kind. But coming up in the sport in the early '70s, we weren't even 10 years removed from when pools were desegregated. So when you think about that, it's kind of it resonates. And if you wanted to be good, you had to study the sport. I mean, we didn't have a plethora of people and contacts in our immediate network that we could, learn from. So Jim Ellis, the coach of Pride and my head coach growing up, and myself, we loved the sport. And we were blessed that we had great people around us that kind of like indoctrinated us into Mid-Atlantic swimming and helped us get a start when they saw my brother and I kind of taking off. So you had the late George Breen, who helped us at, I was able to come work out at Kelly Pool with a bunch of the Vesper Boat Club national level swimmers when I was like 10, I'd obviously be in the slowest lane because they're all, either in college or getting ready to go to college and they were national qualifiers. But you had that, you had Frank Keith, who befriended us. You had Jack Simon, Dick Schulberg. I mean, when I was a kid, I trained at all those different places for a little workout Saturdays and Sundays where we go and challenge ourselves and swim with them. So, but we had to study the sport to learn the sport because it wasn't just going to come to us.
Well, this was a big deal, and Jim was immortalized. He was played by Terrence Howard. You were played by what's his name? Kevin Phillips, who was Andre.
Correct. In
the film, and I understand that in Hollywood they use composite characters, and you made the joke. It's like, yes, Mel, that was me, but you said you weren't as cool back then.
I'm not cool now.
You're cool now.
No, I'm not cool now. But I was a little more of a dork, and I was a skinny kid, low body fat, but just lean.
I can't imagine that. I can't imagine. How tall are you?
6'5". You're
6'5". So let me back it up and say this. It's it's not just the film, but this was also the New York Times weighed in, and in doing some research and looking into your background. What I loved was that Jim, it seemed like Jim had the most affection for you. And I liked what he said about you at a young age. It's like as early as 8. And this really flows with what we were just talking about. He said you were a student and you couldn't get enough. You had to learn as much as you could. And you could just feel his love for you in that New York Times feature. And it's like, and I'm like, that is very consistent with the man that I'm talking to today. And, but I loved reading that. And it's like, and I'm like, yeah, it does. It makes sense. You had to dive in and know everything.
Yes, we did.
So take me back there when you're 8 years old. What were you thinking?
Well, I wanted to be a good swimmer. I mean, the parents bought a house. When they bought a house, they looked at 6 or 7. They ended up buying the only one in the neighborhood that didn't have a pool. All the others did. My parents didn't know how to swim. So she wanted to make sure we learned how to swim. That's how we learned how to swim. And that's how we came across Jim Ellis in the Learn to Swim program. This was in 1971. Again, in 66 and 67, blacks couldn't get in the pool with whites. So you have to remember.
Let's get to this. Let's get to the meat of this. Let's talk about.
my brother became a star instantly. We swam a lot of mini meets at Wilmington Aquatic Club with Bob Matson, Sid Cassidy. Grew up knowing Sid, his entire family. So there's a lot of swimming royalty that's around now that knew us growing up, because Middle Atlantic has always been one of the greater regions of swimming. Like one of my childhood friends is Dave Burkhoff, man who revolutionized sport with the underwater kicks. He's a very good friend of mine. We swam against each other throughout age group swimming in high school. So we were fortunate to come up in an era where there was a lot of prominent swimming in our era and people that understood our plight and were empathetic to that. My brother took off. He was one of the kids that were winning all the high point trophies as a 7-year-old, 8-year-old, 9-year-old. I was getting there, but I was kind of awkward. I was growing into my body. My brother was born with an 8-pack, so and pecs at age 7. So he was easily gonna, for the 25s and 50s in that range, he was gonna dominate. And we just continued to learn. And then we were lucky enough to have, I remember I was at the pool when John T. Skinner went 49-44 in the 100 free at Kelly Pool in 1976. That was in my backyard. That was when he couldn't go to the Olympics because of the boycott for South Africa. I watched him do that in a arena paper suit, one lane line. The pool at the shallow end, because we trained in that pool, is only about 4.5, 5 feet deep. No underwaters, and he went 49-44. Which is still a time that resonates. Until the last couple of years within the United States and our takeoff in sprinting. But it was at that time we had a lot of growth in swimming that was centered around the Middle Atlantic area, and we were fortunate enough to have people that kind of like brought us through that process.
And if you're white in America right now, you're thinking back on everything, and you're looking through the lens of Black Lives Matter. You're looking through the lens of the murder of George Floyd, and everybody's looking inward, and they're really thinking back. And I certainly am hypersensitive and looking for change. So when I'm researching this period of time, I'm looking at Blacks have heavier, denser bones. They might have heavier, denser skulls. They don't have the ankle flexibility. These are myths. So it wasn't based on science, and it was incorrect. So as your kid, are you absorbing this? Is this a part of your reality? Are you thinking that way? Does that affect you?
Not really. You just let it roll off your back. It's something that you can't let resonate too deeply, or you just wallow into negativity. So it's something that you heard, but you just dismiss it. We just let it go. And we never really focused on that. Jim Ellis taught us to be great and to be great swimmers, period. The one thing that Pride didn't go into was the just absolute level of achievement that we achieved as a predominantly Black team, to the point where you had people leaving other, white teams. Most swimming teams are white, but leaving other teams to come swim with us, leaving suburban areas to swim in, an area that's basically like in North Philadelphia, in part of the ghetto. You had people that were, lived in much different settings, but wanted to come down and swim with us because of the energy that resonated from the team. So no, we didn't think of things like that. And he pushed us to be great. He dared us to be great, and always had us strive to be the best that we could be, period. The energy, we didn't realize what we were doing at the time. We were just, doing what we were told. And sitting back now, as you watch the events unfold in this country, and then you watch what we actually did back in that time period in swimming, then you kind of really realize what we did and how it has resonated. I remember we first set our first national ranking. We were 1979. I was it was 4 individuals, 4 African-American boys with an African-American coach. We were ranked 8th in the country in the 200-meter freestyle relay. That is why the relay is in Pride. And we went all over the East Coast, and we never lost. And that was a goal of ours, and we did it. And when you think about it, like in the late 60s and early 70s, they didn't, like I said, I've said this many times, but people need to understand, we weren't allowed to get in the pool with you. And 10 years later, I was 12 years old, we're ranked in the top 10 in the country. So think about that. That's, it's different. And it kept going. And so then I went to college at UVA. Next thing you know, we reset, and
you're getting ahead of yourself. I'm going to get into that.
Okay.
But I want people to know, if you're watching or you're listening out there, this is who you're listening to. And if I get this wrong, you just correct me. My brain might not be as sophisticated. The undergraduate UVA, MBA Duke, managing director Deutsche Bank. So this is Trevor's somebody who is, when I think about you, I have 2 thumbnails in my head, 2 memory images, and one is when you're at the Olympic Games, I think it was 2012, and you're in the VIP section supporting swimming, not, so as a donor to swimming and in general, because you love the sport. And you basically look like a movie star walking through the sessions. It's like you're tall, 6'5", good looking, very successful. So I just see you moving through the crowd and talking to everybody, because you know everyone, you know all the VIPs, you know all the Olympic champions. But I have another thumbnail in my head, and it's one where I get a lump in my throat, and it's that picture. You got to put a picture up, and you're like, I'm being stopped. And you're stopped, and the cop lights are whirling behind you. And can I say what kind of car you have?
Sure. Okay.
Okay, it's Maserati, right?
No,
it's not a What is it?
Aston Martin. Vanquish.
Aston Martin. I mean, like in my world, it's like those. So you're an Aston Martin, and I'm like, oh my God. I'm like in this moment, I'm panic stricken, because I'm like, it scared me to death. Mm-hmm. But the world shouldn't be that way. And but it's the experience now. But those are the two things that I think about when I see you. One is, wow, this is an extraordinary success story, and the other is, wow, your life could be in peril at any second.
I mean, true.
True.
That is true, but it's all how you handle it. I mean, yes, I remember that post, and you commented on it when I was stopped. I was speeding, wasn't going that much over the speed limit. It was fine. And then the guy wanted to search my car without a warrant. I was like, if you have a warrant, you can search my car. If not, then we're not having that discussion. And, just be very articulate, matter of fact, and it usually de-escalates the situation. He was asking me to do something illegal, and I told him no. And if he had a warrant, good. But just like that, there are also great situations. I remember I got pulled over once, and I told the guy that, look, I was behind a couple minivans, and one was swerving, so I just punched it to get ahead of them. And I'm sorry if I did that, but I wanted to be safe and get some distance between myself and the other people in traffic. And you know what? The guy came back to me and said, "Hey, respect gets respect. You're very respectful. You asked me what you did. You explained it. So here, I'll let you go. No ticket." So there's a good story for every bad story.
Good story. And I interrupted you. I want to go back to the transition. I want to go back to you were going to UVA, and it's a beautiful story. You love UVA. You love Mark Bernardino. You
love Mark Bernardino.
But Jim was the interesting. Jim's like,
I'm watching this. Hello.
Jim knew. Jim Ellis knew. He's like, this kid's smart. This kid's going to go on to great things. This kid's going to be a swimmer of national prominence. And you could feel his pride with you getting to UVA. First black swimmer at UVA, and you
second.
Huh?
Second.
And you said second before, and I appreciate
it. A biracial kid that was before me. His name was Scott Meredith. He was very good. I believe he was either runner-up, either he won the 50 and he was second in 100 ACCs. He's pretty good. I think he was on our all ACC 50-year team. He's very good. He's a doctor now.
Call up the New York Times and tell them they're wrong.
Okay, I will.
You got it right. You got it right.
Well,
But you led them to the first ACC championship, first of 16, correct?
Correct.
So what years were you at UVA?
I matriculated in 1984, and I graduated in 1988.
1988. So I was at Mercersburg, and we came down, and we would do Glenn Houck. Were you there with Glenn Houck?
Glenn Houck was on my team.
That's right. I think we'd come down and do sort of a warm up practice meet with you guys in September. And do you remember that?
Mm-hmm. I remember that.
Yeah.
I was there. I think you were in the water. I remember you. You probably had to see me. I was the only brother on the deck. I
did. You know what? Here's the thing. It's I do remember. I remember all of that. But it's I just think it's a small world. It's a small world. What was your experience like at UVA?
It was great. It was good. I mean, look, it was challenging from an athletic perspective and an academic perspective. I enjoyed my years there. It's very rewarding, and it's helped make me who I am today. Mark Bernardino will always be a close friend of mine. His entire family, I call him my brother. I'm part Italian, he's part black. But it was very rewarding. nothing but fond memories, and I'll be the biggest advocate, for the university in any way, shape, or form. I mean, were there situations that are consistent with some of the themes that we're seeing now with the social unrest? Absolutely. I mean, there were times when N-word was uttered. There were times when I remember we won the first championship for UVA in swimming in '87, and in '88 there was an incident where we lost trying to repeat. Came in second. It was close, and we left. And one of the swimmer from another school, remain nameless, but they just decided to say some derogatory things that were laced with racial slurs. And I kept it to myself because I was always taught, as a young Black man growing up, you're always going to have to be when situations like that arise, do not be an aggressor and try to de-escalate and just keep moving on. Don't sit there and antagonize that situation and engage in it, especially in the South. So my roommate actually noticed that I was a little bit, dejected on the bus, more so than most because we lost, so we were not happy. And so it got it out of me. And the buses turned around and we went back in, and the entire team confronted that team, which to me was one of the proudest moments of being an athlete at UVA and being on that team, was to see them rally around me when I really did not make a big deal about it at all. And they were just like, you're not talking to our teammate like that. So, but other than that, I mean, it was a great institution, great experience, nothing but love for the university and the program.
We talked to Maritza Correa, and she talked about a similar experience. Huh?
Ritzy.
Yeah, Ritzy. And she talked about a similar experience that she had a little over a decade, but 13, 14 years later. Uh-huh. And from a teammate who used the N-word in a situation.
I had a teammate use the N-word with me too. So, and the worst thing about it is I had to sit there and let this person say that. And I'll still remember to this day how they looked at me when they said it. And it was not, it wasn't one of my fond memories, but like I said, I've erased that, but I've erased it, but because it wasn't you look at the total experience, extremely positive. That's a bad instance, but I'm not going to let that bad apple spoil my, what happened. But the fact that happened, it should never happen. You shouldn't be able to talk to me like that. And I dealt with it, and I didn't want to because there was things I would have rather done, but that probably would have been the most productive.
And if you're listening, that's not a microaggression. That's aggression. That's a weaponized word coming from the white side. Yeah, that's it sort of hits you in your chest. We talked to her, and now we're talking to you, and it's the same thing. It's just
I mean, when he said it, I first I was like, wait a minute, did you just say that? Then he said it again. I was like, okay, all right. I'm gonna be a bigger person, but it's crazy.
It's so when you're going to graduate school and then you're building your career, did you always know this is going to be the career that you're going to have?
Once I got a chance to experience being on Wall Street and what it was like being an investment banking trading floor, then I knew that's what it was for me. But I didn't know at the time. My parents were educators. I grew up in a lower middle class family in Philadelphia. I mean, I didn't want for anything, but I didn't know what Wall Street was. I didn't know what that was, what that entailed. So I would say halfway through my first year in Fuqua School of Business at Duke University, I knew that this is what I wanted to do. And I've been doing it for the last 25 years, same place.
Wall Street is I don't know that world, but it feels to me like white country club, upper crust. And so I'm wondering, what's that experience like? What's that trajectory like? And I know everyone knows we all know one thing about Wall Street, that you basically kill yourself in the beginning work-wise. Did you have to put in those hours and also deal with any aggression?
Yes, the hours are what the hours are, but it's, swimming prepares you for that. UVA, being in the School of Engineering and Applied Science, prepares you for that, especially doing both of those activities concurrently. And then being at the Pupil School of Business prepares you for that. And one thing that I've said to you always, and we've chatted about this, is in terms of just having discussions around race, you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable. Okay. And one thing my coaches always taught me, whether it was James Ellis or Mark Bernardino, be comfortable being uncomfortable. If you've got 10 hundreds on the minute and they want you to hold, 56s or 57s, get comfortable with it. It's going to benefit you, but it's going to hurt. Okay. So having these discussions, it's the same mentality. You're going to have to get comfortable understanding that you're going to talk to somebody about something that might take you out of your comfort zone. And that's where growth happens. So if you're asking me if I was prepared for that, I mean, it's kind of interesting. Swimming prepared me for that ultimately. Yes, I swam at PDR. At the time when I swam, it was an all-black team, black coach, but I'm a lily white sport. Every time I went to nationals, before I went to UVA, I was the only black person in the meet. I think once before my last year, there was a girl that qualified from our same region, and then she ended up coming to UVA, Gaby Bowser. She was a butterflyer. So one of the other African-American swimmers that actually has graced the campus at UVA, grounds, excuse me. But working on Wall Street, I mean, yes, I have encountered some things, but at the end of the day, I've also had some great sponsors, and most of them don't look like me. They look like you, Mel. So that's why I know that we can overcome all this, because there are some people that I have worked with, there's several, and that have really guided my career, and they don't look like you. I mean, excuse me, they don't look like me, they look like you. And I also do have, obviously, the support of the people that are on Wall Street that look like me. But we're far and few between. And so it's like we always, like when we've been having a lot of chats as people, a lot of us ex-swimmers, whether it's Simone, Colin, Ritzy, Giles, Sabir, we've all chatted. And the one thing is, when you really sit back and look at this, the oppressor created racism, not the oppressed. Okay, we didn't ask for that. We didn't start slavery. We didn't start segregation. They did. So to help eradicate it, they've got to help. Okay, and that's the great thing about the Black Lives Matter movement, how you see the inclusion of so many different people that are not Black. Like, to me, that is just really moving to see this right now, because this era in our country, because there are a lot of things that I see that are disenchanting and kind of like take you back. But there are some things that are really moving, and seeing so many people gather around and say, all right, enough, this needs to stop. That is I think where you're going to see a lot of growth. I did a chat with the UVA swim team, Todd DeSorbo, who's an excellent coach, and now is taking the team forward for the next several years past the Bernardino era. And great guy, I love him. And he reached out to me, said, Trevor, like, we want to have the team, we want to talk to the team about what's going on in Black Lives Matter. There's 60-something people on the roster. There's only one African-American woman. She's biracial, okay? And he's reaching out to me to do that, which I thought was amazing, because no one had done anything yet. This is right before Black Tuesday. And I think the focus of that team and how so many people reached out to me, because I'm a visible alum, so they know who I am. And they reached out to me on social media. They wanted to talk to me, chat with me. Trevor, we want to do more. We want to be anti-racist. And these are some people that admitted it. They said, look, I've been non-racist, but I want to be anti-racist. I want to help eradicate this. That is amazing, because it's not like you're talking about somebody that's playing football at UVA, where there's more African Americans in terms of a percentage of the people they're playing with, or playing basketball. No, you're talking about swimming. Okay, for swimmers to react like that, I think is amazing. It's amazing. So I think that's, when I look at my experience on Wall Street, yeah, I mean, there's been some times where some things have been, maybe not optimal, but there's been some times where they've been great. And I think you have to look at life as it will always challenge you. And it's not about the challenge, but it's how you react to it and how you accept it and how you move forward. And so I think I've been able to move forward well in my career, but that's helped me. Swimming has definitely prepared me. And I'm thankful for that. And when you look at what I do on Wall Street, it's funny, I always check, because people, when they see me, they think I'm a football player or a basketball player, still in shape, a big guy. They don't think swimming, which is fine. So when they figure it out, they're like, wait a minute, you swam a long time ago. Were there that many Black people? I'm like, no, there weren't. Were there that many Black people swimming? No, there weren't. Okay, so then look at what I'm doing now. And I often say to some of the people that are my good friends, I say, hey, look, what would you do if you were working in this environment and the racial makeup was reversed? So it was a bunch of black guys all over the floor, and you were the only white woman or a white man. How would you handle it? And most of them, they take a pause, and then they look at me, and they're not so sure if they could do that, which is interesting. But like I said, swimming I think has prepared me well, and the people that coached me taught me well, and it's been great. I have no complaints.
It's the I grew up in Western North Carolina. I marinated in a racist environment. No, it did. It's and I'm naive, shamefully naive, and so when I never heard, yeah, you're the one who taught me, Mel. It's non-racist, anti-racist, and you want to be moving on that scale to anti-racist. You're the one who taught me that, and I appreciate that gift. I'm shamefully one of those guys who said, I voted for Obama and everything's going to be great. And you're like, no, it's, you're like, no, that created some blowback. There was a moment when Trump was elected, and then it was the day after he entered the White House. My wife and I were with a couple in Mexico City, and we were in the presidential palace, that huge courtyard area. And I never thought of myself as being white. I'm almost 6'2", blue-eyed, and I'm walking around, and Trump is just hammering on Mexico, and I'm one white face in a sea of brown people. And I freaked out, and I ran, and I said, guys, we got to go. We got to get out of here. I freaked out, and we got into the car, and we were racing out of there. And she's like, what's wrong? I said, I didn't feel safe. And my wife looked at me, and she goes, for a split second, you might have just an idea of what it means to be someone of color.
I love to.
And it was the most uncomfortable feeling. And she's like, now imagine holding that in your body and living that way a lifetime. So that was a big aha. Mm-hmm. But so it's think about all the energy that it takes to live in this space. And now we're in the present day, and we're still seeing it. How do we move on from here? That's what that's the big thought moving forward. Okay, we're having this conversation now, but how do we keep having this conversation?
But keep having it. And when Todd reached out to me and wanted to talk to the UVA team, they just wanted to have conversations. They want to learn. And the easiest way to learn is to ask questions. Ask questions in a judgment-free environment. The way you eradicate a lot of this is to get comfortable asking questions, asking real questions, and judgment-free environment, and having people express themselves and figure out, what they know, what they don't know, and how do they move forward.
What's funny is you talk to white people, you talk to white peers, and everyone's like, we're making change. This change has got to stop. It's over. We're done with this. This is ridiculous. They're angry. Everybody's all upset. But if you talk to Maritza, you talk to Reese, they're like, it's going to take a generation. They're like, nah, they're not. They're just like, yeah, this is good. It's a positive step, but it's going to. So how do you feel from where we're at right now going forward?
It's going to take, I agree with them. It's going to take a generation. It's going to be, but the generational change is coming. The Black Lives Matter movement shows that. If you would have taken a snapshot, if you could dial the clock back to, say, when I was at UVA in the 80s, and you had a Black Lives Matter march, and you looked at the composition of the people that are in that march, is going to be significantly different than what it is right now. That in itself is change and growth. And I think, people teaching their children what it is and why, exactly what it is and why they should not be condoning any type of behavior or activity like that is another step. Because, racism is something is taught. It's not, you're not born like that. And so we have to eradicate it by eradicating it from the people that have it, and showing how you fight against it. Because at the end of the day, like I said earlier, it's a product of the oppressors. And we have to, the people that have been the oppressors in terms of their makeup, as well as the oppressed, to work together and to eradicate this from our country, because there's no place for it.
Once you start looking and you're in it top of mind, you start seeing it everywhere. We're down to 8 minutes, and it's you're essentially a thought leader in the swimming space. You know everybody, and everyone has ideas. Everyone has ideas about moving forward. It's a little bit of time, but I mean, do you have thoughts going forward? Where do we, as a community, what more can we do?
It's a good question. In terms of a community, continue to, first of all, grow, help foster this change, and also continue to be anti-racist, and to be vocally that way. I think I've seen so many. I think look, I swam in the 70s and the 80s. Big difference. Seeing people now, and when I swam in the 70s and 80s, for instance, just the makeup of the youth in terms of their interests are much different. When we grew up swimming PDR, we came in, we wanted to listen to hip hop and our vibe in terms of how we socialize. That was us. If you go into a pool deck now, that's everyone. Okay, like Black culture has been accepted, widely accepted. And so, the challenge is to have people accept Black people as much as they accept Black culture. Because if you're at a swim meet, I would say 75 to 85% of these teams are playing hip hop and associating with Black culture. That's one thing. The other is just the continued inclusion of people of color in the sport. I think you've seen what that's happened in other sports. And it's funny because the guy that you said, I forget his name, he's not significant given his thoughts, but we talked about bone density and inflexible ankles.
Buck Dawson, yeah.
Yes. Well, okay. Well, inflexible ankles are something that will prevent you from being a great tennis player. I think the top 5 ranked women's tennis players in the United States are all Black, including Sloane Stephens, whose mother was Sybil Smith, who swam when I swam. She was a butterflyer. She was one of the first Black All-Americans in swimming. Okay, but with Venus and Serena Williams, they created a movement and interest in the sport. And now you have to go way down the line in terms of rankings before you get to someone that's not Black, which is amazing because not that many Black people play tennis. And so I think the inclusion, we have the Make a Splash effort within U.S. swimming, but we have to really look to broaden our sport because it's only going to make the United States better. There's been, when you look at what's been going on, like, Simone really set the world on fire, winning an Olympic gold medal in 100 freestyle in 2016. In 1976, a Black woman from Holland almost did the same thing, Anith Brigita. Okay, she got third, she got bronze. The 2 people that beat her were East Germans, they were cheating. Okay, so she would have won the 1976, the Olympic champion would have been a Black woman from Holland. Okay, if you got out the drug cheats. So that just shows you that, think about it, Matt Biondi, one of the icons of sport, his gold medal, assault Olympics was broken up by Anthony Nesty. And I just think that if we were able to get more people swimming, because there's no way Australia should be as good as we are, as close to as good as we are, given the size of the state of California. And why are they able to compete with us when we're such a bigger, in terms of so much bigger in terms of our population and where we have people coming from in terms of the diversity of backgrounds. So I think as we do that, as we continue to broaden the appeal of swimming, I think it's going to help make us an even better, more dominant nation in the sport. Yeah, I think it's just being fast, being positive and forward thinking in how we address racism, I think will really help us continue to have growth and movement in the sport. I was really, really happy when Todd reached out to me, Todd DeSorbo, wanted to talk about it on Black Tuesday. Like, he got approval from the AD and, he had this conversation. It was great. It was amazing. And I think though thinking like that, being ahead of the game, ahead of the curve, so to speak, just like we've been ahead of the curve in terms of our swimming production as a country, will help us grow.
We're down to 3 minutes, and I'm going to drop this because I didn't want to get past this moment without saying it. We're down to 3 minutes, but I think Simone, I feel like Simone has had to achieve times 10 what everybody else achieves to really get what she deserves in terms of acknowledgement. And I feel like I feel like people are hypercritical of her, and I'm kind of going, I don't know about this. No one's saying, hey, you're a Black swimmer. No one's, it feels uncomfortable to me. I don't like it. And we talked about it a little bit, but that's the thing. Are we still in that space where you got to be 10 times better?
Yes, that hasn't changed. That has not changed. And Simone is she's a good friend of mine, and we chat regularly. And it's kind of sad because when you think about it, she's the most consistent sprinter of this quadrennial, this Olympic, the 4 years from 2016 leading up to 2020. If you go to the major swimming events, so the Olympics, World Championships 2017, World Championships in 2019. You always talk about consistency and ability to get the job done. That's how you kind of describe someone that's a go-to swimmer, somebody that's a money swimmer, someone that gets the job done. She's the only female to be on the podium in the 50 and the 100 freestyle in all three of those events. 2016 Olympics, 2017 Worlds, 2019 Worlds. No one else. And I'd be hard pressed to find someone else that has done that in that time frame, where you're in every single podium. There's probably one or two, but not many. But they get a lot more respect than she does. Stanford. I mean, she's constantly revered as an underdog. But if you sit there and go back and look at that, no other person has done that. So
we're down to 1 minute. We got to say this also. Stanford educated, and if you talk to anybody on the team, she's a leader on the team. Like everyone follows her. She's a big fan. We're down to 1 minute. This is way too short. Will you come back on and talk to us again? And because we don't want to stop this.
I'll talk to you every time I see you, and I'll talk to you whenever you need me. We chat at every swim meet, and I love our conversations. I love your zest for life and for the sport, and I love the fact that you are, you're willing to be open-minded and have conversations that are difficult. Like you told me, you grew up in a racist era, but yet you want to be a champion of change. I mean, not everyone's going to admit that so readily. And you told me I didn't know. You wanted me to know that. So I thank you. I appreciate the friendship I have with you and your wife. Tips is awesome, as are you. And anytime you want me to talk, I'm here for it.
You've been listening to the SwimSwam podcast. Stay tuned for new episodes every week. You can take SwimSwam podcast on the go by subscribing on your favorite podcast platform. Look for links in the description below, and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more videos as well.